This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast for people who love to work alone. Welcome, everybody, to Your Own Best Company. This is a podcast for people who love working alone. I'm Franklin Taggart, and this podcast was my idea. Very excited to introduce you today to Jennifer Urezzio. And Jennifer and I have had one conversation before after meeting in a podcast mixer. We were introduced by Kat. But we were in the same mixer at the same time. I remember that. Right.
We love us some Kat. She's amazing.
Oh yeah, I want to be the president of her fan club. But I would have to compete with some other pretty formidable people to get that role.
Including me.
All right, very good. Well, Jennifer is a master intuitive, a teacher, a warrior, and a paradigm creator. And we're going to be exploring all of those things as we go into our conversation today. But first, I just want to say welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. And I have to tell you, I love that introduction. I mean, I use all those words for myself, but I've never been introduced as a warrior, and I like it.
There you are. Well, when you say that you are a warrior, what does that mean?
I have warrior energy. There's certain energies within our essential makeup that are warrior in nature. And that's, I think, really important for someone to know, because it can be utilized as everything, consciously or in struggle. And you'll know if you're using it in struggle because you constantly have to make war with everything.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased to say that I don't do that as much anymore.
Very good. So how did that manifest for you?
Let's see. I've crashed cars because I've been making war with things.
Yeah.
I would be when I was in corporate America, I'd be like, "Can you pass that pen?" And they'd be like, "Why are you being so aggressive?" And I'm like, "Really? I asked for a pen." Right? It was that kind of that, that energy. The other day I was in my car, I was driving back from the grocery store, and this woman was walking, and I went, "Whoa." She had her whole energy was like, just try to mess with me. Yeah. Right? It's that defensive, that not feeling safe, being vulnerable. It's that energy where people are afraid of you because they don't know if you're going to be mean or, so it was a lot like that. And of course, a lot of it was turned inward, right? Not enough, not good enough, not smart enough, not pretty enough, all of the not enough. So that's some of the ways it showed up in my life.
Now, you also talk about yourself as an intuitive, and I'm curious as to whether that was something that you knew early on, or whether it was something that you came to later as you developed in your own life.
No, I think I've always known it. I have several early memories of what that was like on a metaphysical level. One of my earliest ones was I had to be like 2 or 3. Because my brother was just born. Yeah. And I remember him crying, not being able to go to sleep. And I was like, I just need him to go to sleep. And I just remember seeing in front of me this neon sign of little sheep hopping over a fence. Right. So that's the earliest one. And then a really pivotal one was I was 16 and my father had come into the house. My parents were divorced. And I went, great-grandmother died? And he's like, your mother told you? I was like, no, but I just knew, I knew it. And it was out of my mouth before I even was conscious of knowing it. And then you want to develop it, right? It's a hindrance not to have the verbiage or understand your own way of seeing. I think so often people want to see like others see. And so they're missing all of these signs and signals. And so I just started studying with master intuitives and psychics, and to really understand my gift.
Yeah. Now, when you were working in the corporate world, were those gifts welcomed, or was it something that you kind of maybe had to guard a little bit?
I did it undercover. So I ran a team of people who I was in public relations, and they would pitch stories to producers, and teammates would come to me and I go, do that one. pick that one. This is the pitch. And they come back and they're like, how do you know that? I was like, I just know, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of that, and it really allowed me to push a lot of envelopes and really also be really amazing at my job, because I would know what to pitch, when to pitch, and how to pitch it. Now, a lot of that wasn't fully conscious.
Yeah.
You know, if I am now what I was then, like I would be rocking it. But right. So I did use it. And I had a lot of gut instincts, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember this time where I met this new guy who was a new employee, and I was like, yeah, that's gonna end in trouble. And there was immediately distrust of him.
Yeah.
And it turned out that he was getting all of these media to show up at events, and my boss was like, so-and-so's outdoing you. There's so much media. I was like, yeah, that's not there's something wrong there. And we found out that he was paying his friends to come and pretend they were meeting. And so it wound up all coming out. And I was like, see, right?
Yeah.
So, I went through the corporate experience so I could be who I am now. And it gave me a lot of great tangible skills that I use every day with clients in the business world. So I think, though, if I know what I know now and I could go back, I would sidestep a lot of the challenges that I had in corporate America, because I'm just more conscious and more graceful.
What were the circumstances that caused you to leave that?
Well, first of all, I went to go work with my best friend, who was a former producer of The View and Barbara Walters special.
Yeah.
And then I worked with her for a good number of years. And we had this internationally known coach who I was on the phone counseling her about her relationship with her daughter. Well, she's like, oh my God, thank you so much. You've changed my life. And 3 weeks later, she fired us and pointed to me that I didn't know her business. I did. I just saw beyond the curtain.
Yeah.
And I said to Aaron, who is my best friend and boss at the time, I was like, listen, I'm going to go freelance in about 3 months, because this is going to keep happening, and I'm just going to kind of go do it. And so 3 months comes, and she's like, so you're going freelance tomorrow, right? And I was like, what are you talking? Like, totally no memory. Like, oh, I've made plans. She didn't make any plans,
Yeah.
right? But lovingly, and, as she says, I'll change your life. And she often has. That was the moment I was like, okay. And then a couple months later, I realized on the days that I had to do PR, I was crying at my desk.
Yeah.
And I was mean, because I was miserable, because I was tired of people trying to make a round box square and a square box round.
What was it about PR that was hard?
What was hard was dealing with, because I wasn't allowed to talk to clients at the end. The hardness was that people in the client side didn't want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
They thought the truth was limiting. And my philosophy is, once you know the truth, then we can see what we can do and move around. But they refused to understand. Here's a perfect example. There was this candle company who wanted to get on Oprah. And they're like, we want our candles on Oprah. I go, well, there's only two ways you're going to get on Oprah. One, my favorite things. And if we have a story or a person, because Oprah talks about people.
Yeah.
And they're like, just get us on Oprah, get our candle. And I'm like, okay, you're not listening to me. I was like, we need a person. So I finally convinced them to let us to talk to the master candle maker. Oprah didn't do it, but at least I, fulfilled my job. So I think that was the hardest. But on the flip side, the media always wants to hear the truth.
Right.
So they loved me because I would be really direct and like, okay, so here's the plug. Here's I wouldn't even try to sneak those things in.
Yeah.
And that was highly unusual in that business.
Yeah, because everybody else was trying to manipulate and do the game, right?
Yeah. I'm not a game player. That was that's another reason, I don't play the game, And so, and I was really good at managing down and not managing up. Right. So, yeah. but I had my supporters.
Yeah.
I had a lot of good people supporting me. So that was amazing.
What did it look like for you to go freelance?
So, I started off getting my own PR clients and just doing all the pitching. And then in tandem, I was doing a bed and bath product company.
Yeah.
And I was using my intuition there because I would do custom products. I would be like, fill out a list of questions and I'll send you a personalized product. And people would go, oh my God, are you in my head? How did you come up with this product for me? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I went to go speak at a conference about essential oils and life purpose. And when I got down, people were lined up to talk to me.
Oh, cool.
And it was cool. And then that was the moment I first started hearing what soul language was.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like a straight line, but it was a bunch of curves and hidden alleys. And sometimes there was a road to a dead end and you had to turn around and come back again. But I really wouldn't change it for anything.
And speaking of soul language, that is the name of your business. We're going to go ahead and say this out loud now for people who are listening to the podcast. Those who are watching can see it already. But the website to reach Jennifer is soullanguage.us. And you can find everything that you want to know and more there. And what you can't find, you should call her to find out.
And I pick up my own phone. Just don't call me at 4:00 in the morning.
No 4 o'clock
You're
calls.
you're going to get my high squeaky voice.
So as your business has evolved, it started out kind of in the PR direction. How has it taken shape since then?
Well, now I really just help people talk and create a conscious connection with their soul so they can use that energy to create and receive what they want. I mean, that's the borest of definitions or the simplest of definitions, because that's what I do all day long.
Yeah.
Soul language is the Myers-Briggs of soul. It gives you a tangible structure to talk to this thing that is intangible. And that allows you to create clarity, and it allows you to stop operating from your pain and your programming and operating from that place that wants your greatest success, wants you to receive all that you want.
Yeah.
And so all day long, I'm helping people create what they want. So I'm sorry, because now I have an image of Willy Wonka in my head, because I'm kind of the Willy Wonka of soul.
Here's your golden ticket.
Right? So, that's the kind of, I think that's evolved, and it's still evolving, right? 5-6 years ago, we didn't do business soul languages. Now we do business soul languages, right? And what I love about the paradigm of soul language, unlike human design or Enneagram, and they're all great paradigms, but soul language is a living, breathing, evolving paradigm. Yeah. It's not stuck. So the definitions are, and I'm updating them as fast as I can, everyone. The definitions are always evolving because the energy of humanity is always evolving.
Yeah.
And that's cool to me. That's amazing. And I get to see the energetic waves that are happening as we evolve.
Yeah.
And the example of that is several years ago, I was talking to a lot of people who had the soul language called mentor. And by the fifth one, I'm like, look, you're going to want to go on a hiatus or vacation. And they're like, oh my God, how do you know I'm feeling that way? I'm like, because every mentor that I talk to is feeling that way.
Yeah.
So let's get you there. And then we can start shifting instead of you hemming and hawing about what you truly want. Like, let's get right to vacation mode.
Yeah.
Because they were just so tired of mentoring. And that's really fascinating and cool to me. It's like, my job is like Star Trek, but tangible.
That's good.
Sorry, I just watched the new Star Trek.
Did you?
Oh my God, it was so good.
No spoilers.
No, of course not. But I'm like, why do they have to release it once a week? Can't they just do the whole thing?
Yeah, we've gotten so spoiled with binge watching, haven't we?
Yeah.
So going back, you mentioned the event where you went and spoke at a conference. Was it for essential oils?
The conference was about life purpose.
Life purpose. Okay.
And so I got up to talk about life purpose and essential oils.
Yeah.
I can look at someone and go, okay, so you need this oil and you need this oil and you need this oil. So we were talking about oils that really support you living fully in your life purpose. And it was great.
Yeah.
And I owe a lot to Beth Davis because that was her conference. And she was technically, I think, my first coach.
Yeah.
And so she's like, there's going to be a bunch of speakers. There wasn't. There was just me and Beth. Right. And so it was really a turning point in who I was. And, and I love that fact that I didn't know enough to be worried. So, and I was presenting most of my life, right? I was been presenting since I'm 21 from, corporate America. So I'm like, I'm just going to go up there and talk. And, and I came down and there was a line. I was like, what's going on? Why does everyone want to talk to me? Yeah.
So was that event the beginning of the emergence of soul languages, or had there been glimpses of it before?
That was the moment I actually heard what soul language was.
Okay.
The funny thing was I was collecting the information all of my life, but I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Right. So when I was kind of doing the downloading, talking to the divine about what soul language was, and I would sit every day for like a half an hour and just ask questions and just listen. There would be like a book would literally fall off my shelf. I'd be like, oh my God, is that a soul language? It was like a book that I got in like 1995, right?
Yeah.
Like what? Or I would hear this song that I was obsessed over and I loved most of my life. I'm like, oh, that's a soul language. No wonder why I like that song. It was really interesting. And if anyone's kind of done any downloading of divine information, it's kind of a surreal experience. And at times you think you're crazy and then something happens and you're like, oh my God, I'm not.
Yeah.
And I remember identifying this woman who knew nothing about soul language, nothing about the 3 categories, nothing about the 107 core energy, nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so one of your soul languages is partner. How does that resonate with you? She said, before we got on the phone, I asked myself, if Jennifer asked me what my soul language is, what would I say? She said, I wrote down the word partner. And again, I'm a warrior. So I burst out crying. And she's like, oh my God, like thunder happens, right? When warriors cry. It's like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, you just told me I'm not crazy. Right. So, and here's the thing. People are downloading and channeling divine information all the time. They just don't call it that.
And don't recognize it. Yeah.
Right. If you think books are just written out of pure mind, it doesn't happen that way. Know, every great writer will read their work and be like, oh my God, I wrote that. That's pretty good. Like, because they don't remember it because it's so divinely inspired. And I think people do it in business all the time. They're just not realizing it.
Very true. You've compared it a little bit to Myers-Briggs. I think you mentioned Enneagram or human design as well. I'm guessing that I should infer then that there are specific soul language types that a person is endowed with.
Yeah, we each have 3, one in 3 different categories. It's not done by a test. You actually need a practitioner because it's done through therapeutic kinesiology or muscle testing.
Yeah.
It's done that way so no one can throw the test because we all are smart and know how to throw a test.
Oh, yeah.
So the categories are your mission. And humans have this deep desire to understand what their purpose is. And they've kind of got it all backwards. They think their purpose is to be a speaker or a writer or art. That's a delivery system.
Yeah.
Right? Your purpose is much bigger than that. So that category talks about purpose and mission. The second category talks about how you'll be known here, and how people will refer to you, that kind of the energy of your being here. And then the third category is your soulful personality, how your soul prefers to go through life. And we tend to judge our preferences a lot.
Yeah.
And so that tends to be where ego spends its most time kind of mucking up the waters of soulful information. We're hearing our soul all the time. The difference is how many human painful pattern layers does it have to go through before you understand it. And the example is that our soul is always saying more, more, more. And our silly human heads hear that as not enough, not enough, not enough,
Yeah.
right? And so when people know there are three soul languages, they have a way that their mind can utilize to go from pain and programming to consciousness.
Okay.
So I'll use me. So one of my soul languages, which is in the category of soulful personality, is called graceful warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Again, at war with everything, right? I could be so at war with everything that if I was sitting at a bar and someone would approach me, you can actually watch them come up and turn away, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what? Like, right? So when I started to really understand on such an human level, so I could really listen to my soul, that I could receive whatever I wanted without having to fight for it, then I could utilize that power to really put into everything I was in a relationship filled with goodness, so I could receive what I want. And the perfect example, there's two examples of this. One, I had to go, Erin's assistant or secondhand person, I don't know what her role was, but she was having a baby and the baby came 3 weeks early.
Yeah.
And Erin's like, I need help. You just gotta come, please. I was like, fine, I'm on my way. And so I answered the phone and I forwarded to Erin and I hear Erin go, that's Jennifer. No, that's Jennifer. Like I had healed so much that the vibration of my voice, people didn't recognize.
Wow.
Right. That's wow. Right.
Yeah.
I also I moved one house over on the same street. And that allowed me to receive more. My landlords here are amazing. My book was published.
Yeah.
I gained new clients. Like those are the tangible things. But I think we all want stuff. But I think what's really important is how I felt.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't feel as though I was alone. I didn't feel as though I couldn't be myself. I didn't feel as though I was looking at all the ways that I was not enough. I felt strong and I accepted that I was a steel marshmallow, which is hard on the outside, fluffy on the inside, right? And the people who recognized that early in my life, like people like Erin, other people who are like, I can see the fluffiness.
Yeah.
Now more people recognize it. And I'm comfortable with sharing that versus I'm just going to show you the steel because I'm so afraid of you hearing or seeing or saying I'm not enough that I'm going to fight you every way.
In that unfolding, the soul language for a person is in those three areas that you mentioned. Now, is it unique to every person, or is it something that there are categories of types that are, that people share, or is it something that as an intuitive, you follow the testing where it leads you and then you give it a name?
Now, there are 107 soul languages. They don't ever change, right? And so you have you have 3 out of those 107.
Okay.
And that would be really confusing if they also changed within us, right?
Wouldn't it?
So, and here's the thing. It took me, I think, 4 or 5 years to meet someone who had the same 3 soul languages.
Yeah.
But even those 2 people are drastically different because of the experiences that have been incorporated within them.
Yeah.
What's really cool is when you meet someone who shares the same soul language, usually there's an instant kinship and you'll describe a situation. And even though the details are different, you realize that someone actually understands on a core level what that feels like. And I'll share my experience.
Okay.
So one of my soul languages is called Teacher of Integrity. It's how I'll be known here, right? All of my life, I've been able to see where people are out of the consciousness of love, right? If you pair that with unconscious warrior, that can be a little startling for someone, right?
Yeah.
So I met another teacher of integrity, and I told this story about being around this like campfire with this group of people. And they were all talking, and I said something, and everyone looked at me and then turned and went back to the exact same position in the conversation that they had. Like I hadn't spoken. And she was like, oh my God, that's totally happened to me. And really understood what that felt like.
Yeah.
I think that there's something to say when someone really sees you and really gets you, and being connected via the same soul language that you speak is one of those ways that happens. And it also allows people to, really receive, a 360 view of something from the part of going through it and then talking about it with someone else.
Now, you mentioned, your own experience of healing being such that even people outside of you noticed a difference in the way that you sounded and probably in the way that you looked. Is that something that people, I don't know that I want to put an expectation on it, but is that something that you see commonly?
Yeah. I think it's like energetically wearing a coat that doesn't fit you, right? And so when you take it off, people go, oh my God, that shirt is so beautiful underneath.
Yeah.
Have you always been wearing that? Right? Like, so I think when people change on such an energetic, fundamental level, it has to be witnessed. Anything from their physical face changing to them losing or shedding weight, to their voice sounding different, to them holding themselves different. It has to show up in the vehicle we call this body. And it shows up also in their choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How so?
Here's a perfect example. A couple of years ago, I was working with this woman, and I knew that she was in resistance. I knew it. And I knew that at any moment she was going to start blaming me for her resistance. I also know, in such a deeper way, that I'm whole and complete, and I'm loved and supported and provided for. And if it's not this woman, it will be another resource.
Yeah.
And so in mid-sentence, I was like, listen, I don't think I can help you. I'm going to refund your money. And she's like, what? I was like, no, I'm going to refund your money. Now, 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, I can't refund her money. Like, what? Right? I was like, just going to do it. Like, I'm going to totally trust and make a choice that is in my greatest good, which is also in your greatest good.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge choice. It goes from, choosing who you are in relationship to what content you put on, to who's your client. A lot of people set up a lot of codependent relationships with clients, undervalue themselves, and then are miserable because they get themselves in this weird client service relationship that they don't know how to get out of because they're afraid. Right. So, I mean, that's a couple just tangible ways that my choices have changed. It's also allows me to really utilize my voice more.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people aren't, I have these two friends, they're a couple, and they say all needs and wants can be created if we're in conversation about them. They say it much more beautifully, but right. So it allows me to go, no, that's not for me, or yes, that's right for me. Right. And it also allows me to appreciate myself and others more.
Yeah.
I think everyone has this deep desire to be profoundly loved, and it scares the bejesus out of them as well.
Yeah.
I have this friend who's a friend at the dog park. And I said to her the other day, I was like, thank you so much. Thank you. Because I know that you help when we're at the dog park, because I know that you watch out to see if Heart's going to go all bitey. She's a healer, so she could get really like and she is resource guard, so she could get a little anxious. And I go, and I know you help distract her. Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of you. She's like, oh no, don't, it's no big deal. And I thought, oh, you got a little trouble, right? It allows you to actually offer love. Whether people receive it, that's up to them. But that's a choice I wouldn't have made 20 years ago.
Yeah. Self-awareness makes a lot of difference, right?
Yes.
Tell us about your book.
The soul language book is a full 500-page book about soul language with all the definitions. So no, it's not electronic, nor will it ever be. So that's, if you want to really do a deep dive in soul language, get that book.
Yeah.
My little book of prayers, which I have to tell you is my favorite of my books, is really like 20 prayers that I wrote because they kept coming up again and again and again in people's lives.
Yeah.
And it's I hear it all the time that people, I have this one woman, she goes, I carry it with me. And, I'll go, okay, during a class, pick a number 1 through 20, and people will pick a number. They're like, oh my God, it's exactly what I need to hear right now. It's one of the ways where, and if the word prayer bothers you, it's an affirmation, right? It really helps you to align your energy and focus it and make a choice about how you want to utilize your essential nature. So I love that little book.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And people can find that also on your website, I'm assuming?
Yes. And of course, the big A.
Yeah, the big one. Do you have plans for other books?
I am semi-working on a book when I remember to work on it. It's called The Golden Doorway, and it's all really about accessing your creative power to manifest. So I work on that here and there. And then I have a fiction book that I work on again here and there. It's complete, but called The Keys of Grace.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Will you ever publish that?
I don't know. I mean, I would like to. It's the first really big thing I ever wrote.
Yeah.
And it's one of those metaphysical journeys. I'd like to skip, I'm going to say it from my mouth to God's ears. I would like to skip the publishing part and go right into movie.
Oh, wow.
Because I think it would make a really great superhero movie. So yeah, we'll see what will happen.
So we're looking for filmmakers rather than publishers.
Filmmakers.
All right.
Yeah.
What are some other ways that that people can kind of hear what you have to say or read things that you've written? Do you have blogs or any other channels that you communicate through?
Yeah, I have a blog which is on the soullanguage.us site. Mm-hmm. I have a podcast called Ask and Answered by Soul. I also have a Facebook group called Spiritual Renegades, which is for people who are not going to do their spirituality like anyone else. And I'm really active in that group, and it's intimate and big all at the same time. So that's a couple ways what people can reach out. And on the site, there's a bunch of free audios and free videos. You can have Jen all the time, 24 hours a day if you wanted to. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean.
I do. the beauty of content.
I know. I love content. I'm a content generator. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any of the other kind of personality or indicators that you enjoy learning about or talking about?
Oh, like, you mean soul language?
No, I'm talking about like Myers-Briggs or any of those.
I know Myers-Briggs. I know Enneagram. I know sort of human design, but I don't know them as intimate as I know soul language.
Yeah.
If we kind of lay them all on top of each other, you'll see parts of Enneagram in your soul languages, your human design in your soul languages.
Yeah.
Your soul language, your human design, your Enneagram shouldn't be a shock to you. It should be an additional awareness.
Yeah.
If it's totally a shock to you, then you're either really not paying attention to what's going on or the test is wrong.
So it's more of an affirmation then.
Yeah, it should be. The difference between Enneagram and Myers-Briggs and all of that, I think, tends to be that it focuses on your personality more than anything.
Yeah.
This is really about your essential nature, right? This is who you're going to be no matter what. And this is a power versus I do this because I'm this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a couple of other questions for you, Jennifer, before our time is over.
Lay them on me.
The first one is like, if somebody is ready to find you, what do they enter in a Google search?
They enter soul language normally, or my name, or intuitive, or connection, or divine, or inspiration. The funny thing is sometimes when I meet someone who I have no contact with, like I've never spoken to them, I don't even know where they came through, I go, so how did you find me? And they're like, you're going to think I'm crazy. I'm like, no, how did you find me? They're like, God. And I think when people are ready to find me, they'll find me, which I love and I'm so thankful for. So yeah, I mean, I'm the only Jennifer Urezzio out there.
Yeah.
Shocker. Yeah.
So if someone hears this podcast and they say, I really need to talk to this woman, we do want them to go to the website soullanguage.us. But what specific next step would you encourage them to take?
I would suggest that they either sign up for the newsletter, right, and kind of stalk me for a while if they want to, or do a discovery session where that's my gift, no agenda, where we identify one of your 3 soul languages. So you could start to see if this is something that resonates with you, right? Mm-hmm. Soul language is a very deep dive of connection. And so you want to make sure, like anything you do with any coach, that it resonates with you, mind, body, and spirit. So that's what I suggest. I also have a lot of free tools. And so you can also download that and kind of play with the content and see if it resonates with you.
Very good. Well, Jennifer, I've enjoyed hearing more about your work and the things that you're bringing forward. It's very exciting. And it sounds like that it's just a wonderful and timely contribution to the world right now. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much. I'm so honored and touched, and I want everyone to remember that they're whole and complete. Like if you do nothing in the world, if you are not, don't read or meditate or whatever, if you make the choice by saying, if I knew I was whole and complete, what would I say? What would I do? What would I express? That is enough to transform your life and continue to transform your life every day. That's a perfect way to end. Everyone, we've been talking with Jennifer Urezzio, and she is available at soullanguage.us. Thank you again, Jennifer. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Your Own Best Company. If you enjoyed the show, would you do me a favor and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast host? If you really love it, leave me a review or share it with your circles. If you feel like your career is reaching a dead end, or you're feeling a deep sense of dissatisfaction in your work right now, I help people discover their gifts and then find or create new opportunities that are the best fit for their talent, experience, and lifestyle. Email me at coaching@franklintaggart.com for more information. I also help people start, finish, and launch creative projects, and I offer an ongoing marketing mastermind for solopreneurs and freelancers. More information on these programs and services can be found at franklintaggart.com. Thanks again for spending this time with me.